can you beat Starcraft 2 Legacy of the Void with a DDR Pad? Somehow, I think I'll manage. Also, no, I'm not doing the prologue or epilogue. Like my other Starcraft runs, I'm playing this campaign on normal, though I do change the game speed to faster. And like always, there's a link to an unedited playthrough if you want to subject yourself to that for some reason. For Aiur is the first mission in Legacy of the Void, and it's just an F2A move mission. All you have to do is select your entire army and tell them to go attack the enemy. So I'll take this opportunity to remind you what my controls are. I'm using up, down, left, and right for mouse movement, up left for left click, up right for right click, start is bound to shift, select is bound to F2, and bottom right is T, and bottom left is Q. Again, if you want to know why I chose what hotkeys I did, go watch the start of Wings of Liberty. I explain it in better detail there. Back to the mission itself, I wasn't kidding. You just select all army and attack move. That's all there is for this mission. This mission is the perfect introduction to hybrid. They kill maybe 2 or 3 zealots at most, and then they die almost immediately. No, they don't get much better. The start of the Growing Shadow has a brief section with stalkers where you're trying to navigate to the abandoned base. This section is pretty easy, but I do have to blink a couple of times, which shows why I will not be frequently using blink on my stalkers. Once I get to the base, it's time for the macro part of the mission. The biggest difference for Protoss is that they need to put their buildings on a power field, which is produced by a pylon. I thought this would be a little challenging, but it's really not. But other than pylons, Protoss play almost exactly like Terran did in Wings of Liberty. For this mission, I only have access to zealots and stalkers, so I just make a bunch of stalkers since I don't have a use for zealots on normal. Also throughout the map, there are a few void pylons, which give you a few stalkers when you find them. These are nice, and I go out of my way to get them. But most of this mission really is just making a bunch of units and then attack moving with them. I clear through the first 2 bases really easily, and the final Protoss base barely has any units on normal. After this, there's another brief section where you have to get Zeratul to Artanis to save them. I kinda forgot you have to blink at the start. And then all of my stalkers die because I have to blink again, and I just can't blink them in time. But fortunately, Zeratul's the only one who needs to live, and he's invisible, so none of the enemy units can see him. Spear of Adun is the introduction to, well, the Spear of Adun. Unfortunately, the only Spear of Adun ability you get this mission is Deploy Pylon, so it might as well not exist. More importantly, this mission unlocks Warp Gate. This allows your gateways to warp in units wherever you have pylon power rather than having to build them. This is one of the defining things that makes Protoss in Starcraft 2, but I can't really use it. I mean, I do try to use Warp Gate a little bit, but it's so much better to just queue up units and gateways. It's not that bad, though. It's not as much of a loss as it sounds like. The only thing I really lose out on is the ability to reinforce my army with a deploy pylon or an energizer later, and that's not too big of a loss on normal. But towards the end of the campaign, the gateway units tend to fall off anyway, so I'll be fine. Now for the mission itself. It's pretty simple. All you have to do is clear 4 power cells of the Zerg infestation. Although each time you do this, you will get counterattacked with a big attack wave that you have to deal with. Fortunately on normal, these are pretty easy to deal with. I cleared the final 2 power cells together because the final attack wave is actually pretty scary and I'd rather not deal with it if I don't have to. After this mission I get the option to go to Shakuras or Core Hall, and I want to delay Shakuras for as long as possible because I am scared of Last Stand. Before Sky Shield I finally get access to the War Council and the better units. For my Zealot I take Centurions because their stun is nice and the Aiur Zealot is just not very good. And for my ranged units, I pick Dragoons because you're out of your mind if you think I'm going to try to micro-blink stalkers. The goal for Sky Shield is to clear 5 areas, but you're on a time limit this time. I was a bit worried about this time limit before I started the mission, but it's incredibly long on normal. When I clear the first objective, my time is longer than when I started with, so it's really not a problem. This mission unlocks something else, however, Orbital Strike on the Spear of Adun. It is not nearly as good as this cutscene makes it out to be, but it's still useful, and more importantly, I can use it. Sure, it's a pain to target, but it freezes time whenever I go to target it, so it doesn't matter that it takes me 12 years to line up the shots correctly. It's a lot worse than Solar Lance, but it still helps me on this mission. Even with a time limit, this mission is really easy. I just mass up a lot of Dragoons and Centurions and attack move the objectives. Now for the next mission. Brothers in Arms is also pretty easy. You unlock Immortals on this mission and they're great units. The whole goal here is to push to the Keystone alongside your allies, and thankfully they're very competent. The whole gimmick of this mission is that periodically your allies will get stunned and you have to defend them from hybrid. But when this happens, it also stuns the enemies, which makes clearing really easy. The hardest part is the first attack, since I don't have any units built up by that point, and 2 hybrid are actually kind of scary for your starting Immortals. But fortunately I have the power of space lasers. Apart from the first attack wave, this mission's pretty easy. Pretty much the only threat are hybrid, and Immortals are excellent at dealing with them. I just mass Immortals and some Dragoons for the flying units, and I'm done with Core Hull. Forbidden Weapon is a mission that's actually on a tight time limit. There's 2 things I unlock on this mission, the first being Sentries. Sentries are alright, they're supporting units, but they're not nearly as important as the other thing I unlock. With this mission, I finally have enough Solar Rite to unlock Solar Lance. Solar Lance is a lot better than Orbital Strike, and I can use it to break this mission. There's a shortcut here that you need to destroy that pylon to open. Normally you have to get to the other side to do this, but Solar Lance is able to reach it. This skips most of the map and makes it so you're not really on a time limit anymore. You do have to run back a little bit to get an extra bonus objective that you technically skipped, but it makes this mission really free. And for the ending parts of this mission, Solar Lance helps even more than normal. Most of the cannons and shield batteries are powered by warp prisms, so if you take those out, you don't even have to destroy the buildings. But with this mission done, I can't delay going to Circurus any longer. For the sentries, I choose Energizers. I pick them because their movement and attack speed increases a lot better than shield restoration. Amon's Reach unlocks Dark Templar. Dark Templar are nothing short of incredible. I even have Solar Lance to deal with any flying detectors. Void Thrashers are sad. If you're particularly unlucky, their AoE attack will hit 3 Dark Templar at most. Next mission. Before Last Stand, I make sure to pick up Nexus Overcharge as well as the even better Dark Templar. Last Stand is exactly what it sounds like. It's a long holdout mission. But I do have to destroy these 3 crystals around the map, and that's what the Dark Templar are for. The big problem with this mission is that I don't really have any good units unlocked for it. Sure, I have Dark Templar, but they're not that great defensively, and they're certainly not enough for this map. But we do unlock the Kaidaran Monolith, which is a defensive structure that's normally pretty good. The problem is that building is really hard, and the last thing I want to do is try to spam defensive structures throughout the map. But unfortunately, I have no other option, so I have to. But what if my defensive buildings were easier to build? That's where Nexus Overcharge comes in. It grants all of your Nexuses... Nexi? I'm going with Nexuses, I guess. Anyway, Nexus Overcharge gives all your Nexuses a long-range attack. While the range is really long and really nice, the damage is lacking, but this is still miles better than the alternative. Nexuses are really big, which means you don't have to be that precise when you're building them. They also don't need pylon power, which is just a nightmare with the DDR Pad. So my strategy for this mission is just to spam Nexuses everywhere. Shockingly, the Nexuses are able to hold the flying attack waves somewhat well. Though it does show the main problem with this strategy. The Nexuses just don't do that much damage. I am able to assist the Nexuses with Solar Lance, but that's on a pretty long cooldown. Going into this, I was sure I wasn't going to be able to get the bonus objective, which requires you to survive for longer. But somehow I managed to. I think this is because of how tanky Nexuses are. Even towards the end, with lots of hybrid and ultralisks, they just don't die very quickly. I imagine this would be a lot worse on higher difficulties since they send more banelings, but since they're relegated to a couple per attack wave, that's not too big of a problem on normal. So yeah, I managed to get the bonus objective on this mission too. I go ahead and overload the temple, because as cool as this strategy is, I don't want to stick around and see how much longer it can survive. Temple of Unification is the first Ulnar mission, and the goal here is to capture 5 locks scattered throughout the map. You unlock Phoenixes on this map, and they're okay, they're just not really useful. The only air unit they really do good against are Mutalisks, and they aren't on this map. They can lift up targets and stun them, which is helpful, but you could also just invest in more units to actually kill them. I take the center lock fairly quickly since it's easy to defend one, but I'm going to wait to build up an army to take the rest. This is because dealing with attack waves trying to reclaim locks is pretty annoying, so I'd rather just not. My general strategy was to get the right 2 locks first so I could get to the bonus objective easier, and then after that go for the left locks. Also, Solar Lance on normal is powerful enough that it can let you defend locks without bringing your army back to them. The bonus objective on this map is a giant warp prism that I think you're meant to destroy with phoenixes. However, it does periodically pass over ground, so you can use a regular ground army, which is what I choose to do. Once I take care of the bonus objective, I go to capture the left locks. Unfortunately, while doing so, the enemy manages to capture one of the right locks, but I can just split my army to deal with it. The last lock is a little close, but space lasers are good. Now on to the Infinite Cycle. Being a no-build hero mission, I thought the Infinite Cycle would be a really big roadblock for this run, especially since I can't target any of Kerrigan's abilities, which means my damage is much, much worse than normal. But it turns out that Artanis' heal is enough. I just hotkey it, use it whenever it's available, and the mission's pretty free. I also thought that maybe the bonus objectives would be a challenge, but fortunately the Infinite Cycle represents the peak of mission design, so the bonus objectives are but 10 steps away from the main path. Genuinely, I think the hardest part of this mission is aiming a lightning dash to get to and from this construct. The closest I get to dying is in the second section, but fortunately Artanis gets to revive himself every 60 seconds. Genuinely, I just attack, move, and heal. The only strategy here is that sometimes you want to delay Artanis' heal so he heals some of his health alongside his shields. Okay, but the final section's on a time limit, so surely this'll pose a challenge, right? Nope. I have 3 minutes left before the final section, which is ample time to take the 10 steps required to grab the last bonus objective. And now for Harbinger of Oblivion. What are these mission names? This is worse than Heart of the Swarm was. I unlock the 3rd activated ability for the Spear of Adun before Harbinger of Oblivion, and I choose to take Shield Overcharge. I take this because it's the best balance between power and Solarite cost. This mission unlocks High Templar, which are powerful spellcasters. And the best part is they're not completely useless. While I can't use Storm or Feedback, I can certainly use Archons. And they're even really good with Energizers, too. It's still easier to make anything else than Archon, so I don't really get to use them, sadly. As for the map itself, you are never going to guess what the objective is. Not 1, not 2, but 4 structures guarded by progressively stronger groups of units that I have to kill. I just make a normal army for this mission, it's incredibly easy. I almost forget that the bonus objectives exist, but I do remember just before I kill the final crystal. But more importantly, you're kind of on a time limit this mission with the Void eating away at Kerrigan's hatcheries. Obviously, it's not a tight time limit since I didn't mention it, but something really weird happens at the end of this mission. I unlock the High 5 achievement, which is for finishing the mission before Kerrigan loses 3 hatcheries. In other words, this is the speedrun achievement. I got the speedrun achievement for this mission with a DDR Pad. Anyway, after this I get to go to either Slain or whatever the Purifier place is called. I go to Slain first because I like Void Rays, but I could go wherever at this point. At this point I get too frustrated trying to hit these small buttons to upgrade the Spear of Adun with a DDR pad, so I just use my mouse. I have never considered menuing as part of the challenge for any of the Starcraft games, so I'm perfectly fine using a mouse here. If you think this ruins the challenge, feel free to dislike the video or leave a comment, I don't really care. Steps of the Rite has a unique mechanic where Terrazine fog periodically rises. When this fog rises, a lot of Void enemies will attack your base and you have to defend against them. Fortunately, the Void enemies don't have as much health as normal, or they take more damage or something, I'm not exactly sure. But the important part about this mission is that it unlocks Void Rays. Now I can embrace my inner Bronze Leaguer and just mass Void Rays for the rest of the mission. Okay, no I can't. I still need Zealots on the ground so that the units don't destroy my buildings, but I mostly mass Void Rays. Void Rays are pretty good and they easily clear through the objectives on this map. Oh yeah, the objectives on this map, you're never gonna guess. 4 buildings. Now for Rak'Shir. The goal here is to support Alarak by putting units near him to push him to the end of the map. To help with this, I get better Void Rays now. These ones also increase their range, not just their damage while they attack. As unique as this mission is, I still just make Void Rays and ground units and attack move with them. Void Rays are also incredible at dealing with the bonus objectives, so I just let them do that. You do get attacked occasionally on this map, but I just rely on Solar Lance to clean those up. Unfortunately, there's just not much to say about this one, so let's move on to the Purifier missions. Before Unsealing the Past, I unlocked the second passive ability on the Spear of Adun. This prevents death for every unit once every 60 seconds. After this mission, once I get more Solarite, I'll switch to Reconstruction Beam, which is a free passive heal on all of my mechanical units. Unsealing the Past unlocks Colossi, and these are great units if you're going with a ground army. They have long range and do pretty good damage, and do a lot of damage when you unlock their Purifier version. The goal for this mission is to protect the megalith as it travels around to the 5 stasis locks throughout the map. It travels at its own speed, but you can influence how long it takes to get to its destination, giving you more time to build your army. If you leave it alone, it's forced to use its laser, and it is not a good weapon. This gives you a lot of time to build up while it's clearing the first stasis lock. You can stall it at later locks too, it's just not as easy. With the extra time to build up, it makes this mission pretty easy. I make as many Colossi as I can, and then I fill in the rest of my army with Dragoons and Sentinels with whatever minerals I have left. The final lock has a bunch of enemies to clear, but between my army and the Spear of Adun, they go down very quickly. After this, it's time for Purification. Purification has a huge shakeup for the mission objective this time. Instead of just 4 or 5 objects I have to destroy, there's 12 now. Though they are in groups of 3, so if you think about it, it's kinda like there's 4. Anyway, this mission is really standard for Legacy of the Void. You do have to protect the core matrix, but that's really easy on normal with Solar Lance, and you can just leave some units behind if you're super worried about it. Yeah, honestly, I don't have anything else to say about this mission. It's really standard and really easy. How about a little montage, I guess? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And now time for the carrier mission. Whoa. Why is it when you unlock capital ships, it's always on a resource-starved mission? Here's the most expensive unit in the game, and here's 5 half-destroyed mineral patches to go with it. Anyway, this mission is all about building up carriers because you can't afford anything else. For added fun, most of the money on this map comes in the form of pickups, which are just an absolute treat to pick up with a DDR pad. The strategy for this mission is basically the exact same as normal, you just make carriers. I do accidentally make a bunch of phoenixes instead of carriers somehow, which is a little unfortunate, but at least I use them for defense. At least that's what I told myself. There's only one form of defense you can do on this mission, and it's just Solar Lance. Good news though, I unlocked a bigger, angrier space laser. The Purifier beam is really good at the bonus objectives on this map, as well as pushing into the more heavily fortified main objectives. Oh, and of course both the main and bonus objectives on this mission are to blow up some buildings. This is Legacy of the Void, what else could it possibly be? This mission isn't hard, but I've somehow managed to make it even slower than normal. 30 exhilarating minutes later, and now it's time to return to Aiur. Now I finally have enough Solarite to use Time Stop, which is the strongest ability in the game. Templar's Return is a no-build hero mission that's actually a challenge. This mission is split up into 3 parts. First is a part with Alarak and Vorazun. This one is by far the hardest out of the 3. Fortunately, most of the abilities are auto-cast, meaning I only have to manually use Alarak's Destruction Wave. Unfortunately, neither of these heroes have the ability to attack air units, so I have to rely on Destruction Wave to destroy any Overseers to keep Vorazun safe. The first big problem comes with trying to micro Vorazun. The biggest problem is that Vorazun loves running into detection to kill a random Zergling. This first section isn't too bad, but the later ones are really rough. This next part shows the real difficulty of this mission, trying to control both of these heroes. Alarak and Vorazun are almost complete opposites, which makes controlling them really annoying. I need to keep Vorazun back or she'll die in detection, but Alarak loves charging in to get himself killed. Though in this case he does get a Baneling exploded on Vorazun and she dies. I decide that the best way to handle this part is to try to leave Vorazun behind and let Alarak Destruction Wave the Overseers. Only once the detection is down can Vorazun move in to do anything, otherwise she will just die and I can't really do much to stop it. Of course this isn't easy and Alarak almost dies multiple times too. But I managed to push through and now I get to do the next stealth section. Fortunately this part doesn't have random Zerglings that Vorazun can take out her Bloodlust on. Instead, this part is all about blinking and trying to stay out of detection. I'm sure I don't really need to elaborate on why this is not ideal. The final part where you charge up Alarak is really easy, actually. Genuinely, on normal, I'm pretty sure you could just let Vorzun stand there and do her own thing and you'd win. I do try to target down the Hydralisks when they show up, but other than that, this section's really free. The next section has you use Karax and Phoenix to build up an army to go kill some hybrid. This section is built around Karax reclaiming robotic units. This means things like Sentries, Immortal, and Colossi. Overall, this was shockingly easy. Getting off multiple reclaims in a fight is really hard, so I just pick the highest value target and go from there. You can also reclaim structures and use money found throughout the map to make units, so I just make a bunch more Immortals. This section was slower than normal, but it wasn't really that much harder. The last section is just attack moving with Artanis and a bunch of units you get along the way. I spam his heal whenever it's off cooldown to help keep my units alive, but other than that, this really is just attack moving with whatever units you get. This section is by far the easiest of the three. And with that done, now it's time for the host. For the host, I decided I wanted to try out the Tal'Darim mothership to see if it was any good. The host is the penultimate mission, meaning, you guessed it, we get to destroy 5 objects this time. At least this mission is a lot more involved than a lot of the other ones were. I try to take out the first pillar early, but I get absolutely clobbered, so I decide to wait until I get my mothership to take it on. Speaking of, it's okay. It's very reliant on its abilities, but it's not the worst without them, but I really should have just stuck with carriers. You get attacked a lot on this mission, so I need a much better defense plan than usual. I still don't want to try to build static defenses, so I just make a group of units and leave them by each of the entrances to my base and hope they're enough to deal with any attack waves. Worst case, Solar Lance solves most of my problems. For any big announced attack wave like this, I can use my main army to help, but I'm not dragging it back for every single attack wave. The biggest problem with this is that my supply will be much more limited than it usually is. The void shards are well guarded, and it's really hard to punch through them without time stop anyway, so this won't help anything. The bonus objective for this map is positions you can secure to get allies to help you push the void shards. They're there. You can't say they did nothing, but you'd be hard-pressed to find something they actually helped with. They're a lot better when I can protect them with time stop or shield overcharge, but they're just terrible. I might as well be on my own. Speaking of time stop, it's almost a necessity to push into the pillars with the amount of enemies that spawn. I am able to do the 3rd pillar without it, but I don't know that I could do the 4th or 5th, even once I get a maxed out army. I get the Tal'Darim and then attack alongside them into the 4th pillar because, well, I might as well. It's technically better than them not being there, I guess. The void shards spawn a lot of enemies that are really hard to keep up with, so your best bet is to wait for time stop and just focus down the shard. After the 4th pillar comes the best part of this mission, waiting. But fortunately, oh look, time stop's up. I dive the last pillar and it's time for salvation. For salvation, you have to defend the artifact for 30 minutes while it charges up. Fortunately, you're not alone, however. Each side of the temple is guarded by one of your allies, and you have to support them throughout this mission. They're pretty good and can hold a lot on their own, but some of them certainly need more help than others. The biggest problem to deal with are the Golden Armada attack waves. These consist of Protoss air units like Carriers and Tempests, and are pretty scary. And if you're wondering, no, this isn't just all in air, but it's Protoss, because the artifact can't be used. Therefore, it's a completely different mission. My plan for this mission is just to make a bunch of Void Rays and Carriers and primarily focus on dealing with the Golden Armada when it shows up. It's pretty much the one thing your allies can't deal with very well. When there isn't a Golden Armada attack wave, I'll help whatever side is being attacked currently. Ideally, I would split up my forces into 3 groups, one for each side, but I don't really feel like doing that and microing it, so I'm just going to keep them all together. This works shockingly well. Your allies are really good, especially on normal. They barely need any help. Also throughout the mission, you'll lose access to your Spear of Adun abilities. This is a little annoying, as Solar Lance is really good, but you can work without them. And your passive abilities never go offline. That's pretty much all there is to say about this mission, so again I'll do my outro during it. Legacy of the Void is just pretty disappointing for this challenge, honestly. So many of the missions play exactly how they would if I was playing normally. I know it's a meme to make fun of Legacy of the Void's mission design, but so many of them are just go kill a few structures. I'm not saying there weren't any of these missions in Wings of Liberty or Heart of the Swarm, but they felt a lot less prevalent. A good example of what I mean is the evacuation in Wings of Liberty. If you don't remember, this was the mission where you have to guard trucks as they travel up the road to a starport to escape. Yes, this mission is basically still just build an army and attack move it, but there's at least something interesting to talk about, which is traveling with the truck. Sure, it was easy as saying, oh, I right-click the truck to automatically travel with it, but there's at least something to talk about. But in Legacy of the Void, a lot of these just build an army missions are just that. You just build an army and attack move with it. There's nothing interesting to talk about at all. And another thing you're probably wondering about is why don't I play these missions on hard? The answer to that is twofold. First, it would just make too many missions impossible. I could maybe do 4 Aiur, which is the first mission, but all of the other no-build missions I do not think I could do on hard. And I don't think Last Stand would be impossible, but it's certainly not something I'd want to do. And the other reason why I don't do these on hard, what would change? Let's take Steps of the Rite, for example. What changes from normal to hard? I imagine more enemies will attack you during the fog, there'll be more enemies out on the map, and they'll have a bit better upgrades. But in the end, I would still mass Void Rays and throw in a few ground units so my buildings don't die. And it doesn't even give me anything interesting to talk about. On normal, I said I get attacked during the fog as like the main mission gimmick, and on hard I'd say I get attacked during the fog as the main mission gimmick. There's just no point in playing these missions on a higher difficulty, which is really sad, honestly. And I'm pretty sure Brutal would just be impossible too. I was also kind of hoping that my Spear of Adun choices would change at all this run. Unfortunately, they didn't. The good abilities are still the good abilities, nothing's gonna change that, and it's not like I can't target Orbital Strike or Solar Lance since they pause time. Despite all I just said, this all mostly just applies to me being disappointed in making it into a video. I still enjoyed playing this with a DDR pad, and I'd recommend anyone who likes Starcraft to give it a try too. And again, no, I am not going to do the prologue or epilogue. I don't want to, and I don't know that anybody actually cares about it. Well, anyway, thanks for watching. Like it if you liked it, and subscribe for more. I'll be releasing a video soon about my plans on what I'm doing now that Starcraft is done.